Happy Halloween, everyone. It's October 31st, 2021, and in the spirit of this spooky holiday, I want to go over the scariest thing of all, and that is losing money on Pokemon cards. That was something that I didn't think was possible for a majority of 2021, and didn't seem to be the case at the end of 2020. We just seemed to be in this crazy speculation bull run. But this last PWCC auction block kind of felt very different. Um, so I guess in that regard, the first thing we have to start off with is what exactly did I sell? So here is my October 21 auction block. For reference, though, this stuff was sent in mid-July. We see I have 21 items here. I sent this stuff in mid-July for the August auction block, but right around the time the block was supposed to start, it came out that PWCC was getting kicked off of eBay, regardless of the scandal and the validity of it all. That caused PWCC to then have to take a couple extra months to then restructure and have their website set up to run the auction. And I think that's part of the reason that we're going to go over these lower realized prices. But for reference, this is what I sold. We see that I sold some of these EX era decks. These were just half decks with one EX card and then set cards from. They're pretty much miniature theme decks. They're pre-constructed decks. This stuff, yeah. I'll talk about my thoughts about having auctioned this stuff off later on in more detail. Then we have beginning door. This is just Advent of RCS promo card. Shiny Secret Rare Golurk. This is a Skytree Rayquaza promo card. Some full arts, a good amount of shinies. We have some ultra shiny GX cards, Japanese 7-Eleven Pikachu promo, Hidden Fate, Special Delivery Pikachu, more shinies from Shiny Star V. This very much is stuff that I had duplicates of. And if you've seen any of my unboxing videos in the past, or even if you check my eBay, I still have a lot of this stuff as duplicates for sale. So this was stuff that I didn't really care for what it went for at auction because I just had so much extra, regardless, that to me it didn't really matter. But to be fair, I had expected a much higher realized price, and I actually wrote this stuff on Excel just so we can go over it. I have my 21 items here. These are their sold prices, totaling up to $874. Now, on the column next to it, I put the expected price that I believe the fair market value of the card realistically is. And you can see that the total that I come up with is $1,365. That's what I believe, the fair market value, if you were to list this stuff, buy it now, what it could actually sell for. So right there is an unrealized loss or unrealized gain, depends on how you want to phrase it, of around $491 between what the card sold for and my expected, buy it now price. Now, I'm going to adjust that by 25% right here. And the reason I did that is just to kind of give some wiggle room, just because of the nature of auctions. They don't actually typically go for the real buy it now price, unless the item's very rare. I could typically see a very rare item getting to above or around the buy it now, just because there aren't very many options. But for auctions, and a lot of this stuff is pretty common stuff, I could see maybe 25% and even 30% below, buy it now. It was to be expected, in my opinion. So if I adjust the expected prices by 25%, we come out to 1,024, and we do the same thing. We just adjust our expected loss slash gains, unrealized loss slash gains. It comes at the 368. In my opinion, $368, while not the most, is still, as I said, a significant amount of money in comparison to the total that I got for the lot. And if we look here, I did my percentage under. So this was done by taking the difference of what I received and dividing that by the expected price, and then obviously just making a percentage. This way, I can actually kind of see how much was how much of a difference percent-wise was I expecting on these items. And then the stuff that was 50% or more, I highlighted in green, and the stuff that was between 40 to 49%, I highlighted in yellow. So we do have some cards that were below 40% of a difference. We have some outliers like 30%, but we even get as low as 8% on a card like Special Delivery Pikachu. But the ones that I really do want to focus on are definitely going to be the green ones, which are the EX theme decks. The Milotic EX deck, I thought would go for a good amount more, along with the Raichu theme deck. And then the shinies, we could see these cards ended at $10. My Shuppet ended at $10. My Metang and Beldum ended at $10. which is fairly low considering the current price to grade those cards is actually above $10 at CGC. And then also this Grand Prix Charizard as well ended below 50% of what I had expected. There's a lot of commonality in the stuff that ended 40% lower. One of these is shocked me a lot as well was this Golurk ending at $98 when I had expected the auction price to be around 150. Um, and there's a lot of reasons that I think the PWCC auction block went this way. And I guess if you're curious how I came up with these expected prices, you can really just go on for eBay sold listings. A lot of this stuff was priced around what eBay sold listings were. For example, this Golurk in a PSA 9 for $98 is pretty significantly low considering PSA 8 sells for around $80 to $90 fairly consistently on eBay. So I was expecting around 150 for the PSA 9, especially considering I paid around $140 for it in a previous auction block, I think around March of this year. So yeah, this is just a quick spreadsheet so I could kind of visualize the amount of money that I potentially, either gained or lost out on from this block. And why do I think this was? Number one, I think there's just too many items. I had mentioned that this stuff that I had in this block was actually sent in for August. And if you know how PWCC was running their auctions, it was just monthly auctions where you would submit stuff in by a certain date. It would get photographed, labeled, and put into a block for the upcoming month, and it would just cycle. Every month was cyclical. You could just send stuff in, put it listed, and move on. So when PWCC got kicked off of eBay, they had to restructure, as I mentioned, and bring up their own website to be able to host the auction. The issue with that is it took PWCC 2 months to get everything set up. So in that 2-month period, you just had this pile up of people sending in their August submissions that were furloughed until October. The September submissions then got furloughed into October. And then they were also still accepting October submissions for the block. So what that ends up creating is more or less a 3-month delay and buildup of cards being sent in to be sold. And we can see here, just based off of the numbers, PWCC announces that in the October 2021 monthly auction, they had 8,036 CCG items or lots. And then they break it down further by showing us that for the monthly auction, they had 6,814 Pokemon cards. That's a lot of any item to go through. That is so many items to have to sell in an auction format. And while I think this could have been possible to handle through eBay, the biggest issue that I saw was just how they structured the auction itself. And that's kind of the second point. The way the auction was structured was if you saw an item that you wanted, like say this Japanese Crobat, it sold for $11. If you saw this Japanese Crobat, what you would have to do, and this was something that I was not aware of until minutes before the actual auction kind of progressed and started, was you had to throw in an initial bid to an item to be able to bid on it in extended bidding. And the reason that I was surprised by that is that's very confusing. It makes sense. It makes sense to me now, knowing after the fact what I had to do. But in my opinion, I thought that this was just going to be structured like a typical auction block where items would be ending in a cascading format one after another. And obviously, what they tried to implement was the extended bidding format. That is super typical for actual auctions. Heritage is a great example of that. If you ever go onto a Heritage auction, you'll see that items that are up for sale, every time a new a new bid is placed, I think it extends it by around 10 seconds. It extends it by 10 seconds, and then there's a countdown at 5 seconds down, noting that the lot is about to close. That works for Heritage, and it's not like Heritage doesn't sell volume. I typically watch the Monday and Sunday comic lots, and that is a couple thousand comic books that end in succession, but they obviously it's still less than, what was it, 8,000 cards? Let's just go with Pokemon. It's still less than 6,000, which I think is absurd for 6,000 Pokemon cards ending in such a short time period. But the other reason it works for Heritage is they just allow the auction block to take the time that it needs. So all 6,000 cards are listed up at once. You get a 2-week period to go through all 6,000 cards. Now, what you have to do is when you see a card that you want, you can't just favorite it, which is typical for I'm going to use Heritage as an example because that's the main one that I have as a reference for a larger auction house. But even eBay, adding it to your watch list. Heritage PWCC, instead of just letting you watch it to bid, you also had to place a bid before the countdown ended for the initial closing. And what does that mean? It means that you can't just watch an item passively. You have to throw bids, and that means you also have to go through every single page and look for items you would potentially want well beforehand, because you can't just go through during the actual closing of the auction and bid. Because if you weren't bidding beforehand and put in an initial bid, you're not allowed to bid in extended bidding. And I think in their mind, that made it a lot easier, per se, to handle the auction. It also kind of rewarded buyers that were more, how I should say, like proactive in going through the stuff. Like, for example, I was not a proactive buyer. I was not aware that that was the case. But because of that, I think a lot of stuff ended up going under the radar. And a lot of this cheaper stuff ended up getting lost because it's not that I think this card should typically go for $11, but I do also think this is a type of card that goes for $11 if it's not actually given a chance to be bid on. This was realistically bid by one person. One person threw maybe a $12, $13 bid on this as a placeholder, and then nobody else got around to throwing another bid, but it didn't matter because one person had put that bid in and everyone else was locked out by the time extended bidding began. And while I do believe that extended bidding and forcing people to put their bids in beforehand can work for an auction system, and it definitely worked for the high end stuff in this block, it just does not fundamentally work if you have this many items. Like, it's absurd to me. 6,000 items, 6,800, almost 7,000 items. They expected people who, in the past, if you think of an eBay auction, the stuff ends in a cascading format. So you could just look at the stuff ending soonest and keep refreshing it every couple of seconds, every couple of minutes to see what's ending sooner, or what's up on the block, what's coming up. And in that regard, you don't actually have to pre-bid on anything or pre-look through an auction until the day of. And that has a lot of benefits to it. Rewards, if you can just go through the eBay auction and bid on stuff that's ending soonest because you see it, um, it rewards you because you don't have to invest too much time beforehand to look at all the items. Another reason I think it's super beneficial for sellers is if someone misses out on an item, um, and this is more of like a psychological thing. If someone misses out on an item, they might get FOMO. They might feel like a little pissed off that they bid up and got outbid last second. So what they'll do is they'll start refreshing ending soonest, and then just kind of decide to buy something else, throw the money into something else. Example would maybe be, let's see if I have an example on this block. This Milotic EX deck. If someone got outbid on this Milotic EX deck, it went for above what they had expected. They already set aside the money to buy it. They might just say, okay, whatever. They go to ending soonest and they see that this Dustclop deck is coming up. And they say, okay, well, I had this money aside for the Milotic deck. I got outbid. Screw it. I'll just put the money into this Dustclops deck. And not always that's the case, but for me personally, that's how I would like shop. I would try to bid on something on the PWCC auctions on eBay, and if I lost on an item, I would just say, okay, I'll move on and find the next item. But the way that this was structured was you can't move on to the next item because you had to already decide every single item that you would potentially want to bid in beforehand. And that's like another reason that I think the system doesn't work is a lot of people will bid on stuff if they see that it's going low. And like Heritage is a great example with this is when every item comes up one at a time for you to bid on before it closes, you can then decide in that moment if that item feels low to then bid on it. But with this is if an item feels like it's low, but you weren't like privy enough to throw a pre-bid onto it, you're just not allowed to participate. If they want to work with this format, they have to limit what people can submit. Uh, I would never have submitted this cheap stuff into this type of format because it doesn't work. This cheap stuff works if people could kind of FOMO into it, and it's easy to throw bid up $20 on a card. That's super easy to do. It's easy to just look at a card. You see one shiny card end for X amount. You're like, whatever. I'll just find another one ending after it, and I'll bid on that. But you can't do that if everything has to be pre-done. And that's just my biggest issue is you can't expect people to go through 6,800 cards and pick out all the good ones and then monitor all the cards that they wanted to bid on. It's too much work. It doesn't work with this many cards. And that's not to say that's the only reason I think this stuff went low. I think I submitted more or less junk. I think this stuff should never be auctioned. These baby shinies should just be buy it nows at cheap prices. Another example is this card right here. I'm like, I want to take full responsibility. This card should not have been auctioned because it's like an obscure Japanese promo card in a near mint 8.5. That is such a stupid card to auction off because the actual buyer pool is so niche. In the past, you could just chalk anything up to PWCC and you get pretty close to fair market value, but that's not the case anymore. And that's what it proved to me with this block is if you want to submit, you have to be more specific. This is too niche of a card to throw in an auction. And this card, for example, is going for below where this card costs more money raw. This Charmander as well. And I'll say this: there are outliers in auctions as well. This could have just been a card that went low, but I do really think that this card would have went for more than $15 if maybe more people were aware that you had to bid beforehand. If the stuff was actually in a cascading format where one item was after another, if you do the cascading format, it allows for more eyes to be on each item at one time. That's my personal opinion. In a 6,800 card lot, people are searching for specific cards, so it leaves for the stuff that isn't being searched for to just get left behind. I think this is a pretty fair assessment. I don't hate PWCC. I'm absolutely fine with what this stuff sold for as an experiment. But I think it's an important thing to note that a lot of this cheaper stuff should not go to auction anymore. And if you're curious as well, like how much am I losing on a card that sells for $10? I believe that PWCC takes around 15% at this price point. So I'm getting about $8.50. I paid $1.20 for these baby shinies. So let's round it down to $1 because of conversion. So we'll say I get $7.50 back, and I have this open here. We can see that when I submitted these cards in bulk, I paid $6.80. So technically, I didn't lose money on the $10 sale. I made like 50 cents adjusted for shipping, taxes, and whatnot. I made 25 cents to 50 cents. I'm not gonna complain about a little bit of money, but yeah, this was just my thoughts. I did want to go over it and kind of give you, I think this is an important thing to show, just like the honest truth that you can lose money. But I just wanted to be like honest and upfront and give you my thoughts about this block and why I think this format, the flaws with the format, what I think it's good for, and where I think they could possibly improve it. Thanks for watching and have a nice one.